So tonight we're going to be looking at UFOs, which is a big stumbling block for a lot of people, and we want to try to give some answers to that. Well, due to the pervasive teachings of naturalism today, that life came about by chance alone, it is assumed that it must have happened elsewhere in the cosmos, causing many to believe the universe must be awash with life. When combined with teachings that the universe is billions of years old, people have become ripe for deception, leading to the idea that older, technologically advanced aliens have been visiting the Earth over the thousands of years. Well, these teachings today are in direct conflict with biblical creation, which states that God created the universe over the course of 6 days, with 5 of those days being spent creating the Earth and its inhabitants. The sun, the moon, and stars, all the rest of the astronomical bodies were created on one day of that creation week, on day 4. It was then that he created the sun, moon, and stars. All the astronomical bodies were created on that one day. The Bible also states in 1 Peter 3:18 that Christ suffered for sins once for all time. So, from the Bible, from the more straightforward reading of the Bible, this would appear to be the only world that God created in the universe. But sadly, these teachings have in fact caused many to believe that the supernatural beings in the Bible, like the cherubim or the seraphim and the angels and the miracles in the Bible, can be attributed to benevolent aliens that were mistaken as angels or even God by people of old, and that these aliens may have even been mankind's creators. Perhaps the most notable examples of this are the chariots of fire that are listed in 2 Kings that appeared before Elijah was taken up into heaven, or Ezekiel's descriptions of the cherubim that are found in Ezekiel chapter 1. Polls have found that 70 to 80% of people today believe that intelligent life exists in space. A 2019 Gallup poll found that 1/3 of the U.S. population, that would be close to 110 million people, said that they thought some UFOs are alien spacecrafts. The majority of adults, however, 60%, said that UFO sightings can be explained by human activities or natural phenomena. So, what has caused the belief amongst people that UFOs are extraterrestrial aliens from outer space? Well, we want to examine the reasons for this belief and determine if there's any credibility to the beliefs. We'll start with the number one reason, which I will actually come back to later. The number one reason is that the spontaneous appearance of life on Earth has become accepted by natural science and is taught as a matter of fact today in our public schools, even though there's literally no evidence to support the claim. But arguably, it would be correct to assume that if life originated here through purely natural processes, it would have happened elsewhere. And this leads to the belief that there must be other worlds, there must be other life out there. Well, this view that life exists elsewhere in the universe is endorsed by top scientists today, including the members of the National Academies of Science and NASA. Well, one of NASA's main goals since the turn of the century has been the search for extraterrestrial life. For example, their search for exoplanets. They're searching for planets elsewhere because they assume if this world evolved naturally, others would have as well. Well, as the NASA Administrator Daniel Golden stated, they're searching for Earth-like planets that may be habitable or inhabited. NASA is searching for extraterrestrial life. Well, searching for exoplanets is but a small part of what is called a SETI. That is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Now, SETI is a collective term for the scientific searches for intelligent extraterrestrial life, like monitoring electromagnetic radiation, such as radio signals for signs of transmissions from civilizations on other planets. This picture here shows just a few of the 27 dish antennas of what is called the Very Large Array, a radio telescope site in Socorro, New Mexico. NASA joined the SETI efforts in the late 1960s. Some of their SETI-related projects include Project Orion, the Microwave Observing Project, another that's called the High Resolution Microwave Survey, and another that is called Towards Other Planetary Systems. This picture here shows the 300-meter Arecibo radio telescope in Puerto Rico, which was featured in a 1997 movie called Contact with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey. You might have heard that this radio telescope experienced catastrophic failure in 2020 when the instrument platform shown there catastrophically broke loose and crashed into the dish. Well, SETI is an international program that has spent billions of dollars, including millions of participants worldwide, scanning as much as 28 million radio frequencies per second. And what have they found? Well, absolutely nothing. In over 50 years, they found absolutely nothing. When you're talking about government waste, this is it. Billions of dollars in research that has produced no results whatsoever. Well, the third reason why there are such high numbers of beliefs in aliens, extraterrestrial aliens living out in space, is that modern culture today is inundated with science, sci-fi books, movies, and TV shows about aliens. It might not seem immediately obvious, but most science fiction depicting alien life has evolution at its core. If life evolved here on Earth, it must have evolved elsewhere, and that's what we're seeing. Well, anyone want to guess what the most successful TV series in history was? The most successful TV show in history was. Anyone guess? That's right. It's Star Trek. It first aired in 1966 and went through several different variations. Those are the various captains of your various Star Trek spaceships shown there. Well, for some, their belief is linked to the enormous numbers of reported sightings. In 2019, in the 2019 Gallup poll that I mentioned previously, 16% of the U.S. population, that's about 53 million people, admitted to having actually seen a UFO. That's a lot of people. Well, it has been said that there are hundreds of sightings every day, but a search for credible photographs can be frustrating and often either reveals a lack of credibility in the witnesses or that hoaxers were responsible for these photos. Actually, both of the photographs I'm showing you here are said to be hoaxes. See, people love messing with people, and we do those kinds of things to get attention. My question, though, is where are the more recent photographs? I mean, good grief, everyone's walking around with these high-resolution cameras now, and they're attached to their phones, and you would expect to see jillions of photos of UFOs. If indeed that many millions of people in our country have seen UFOs, where's all the more credible photographs that we should be seeing today? Well, some of the most famous photos of UFOs were taken in Switzerland in 1975 by a guy by the name of Billy Meier. One of them was actually featured prominently in the television series The X-Files. You might remember the show The X-Files. It was originally about looking for aliens. And you notice the poster, that Billy Meier's photo appears in Agent Mulder's office in this TV series, The X-Files, a poster that says, "I want to believe." A very apt tagline, as many today do want to believe. They want to believe this lie, like they want to believe the lie of evolution as well. People want to believe these things. Well, these are 2 examples of 9 photos taken by Billy from multiple different vantage points of a supposed spacecraft that was circling a tree. I don't know how I managed to get 9 photographs from several different vantage points of the same spacecraft, but Billy Meier, shown here, is a founder of a UFO religion. And he claims that he has been visited by ETs, extraterrestrial aliens, since 1942, and also that he's the 7th reincarnation of 6 prophets common to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, including Enoch. He was first Enoch, and then he was Elijah, and then he was Isaiah, and then he was Jeremiah, and then he was Jesus, and then he was Muhammad, but today he's Billy. So, yeah, he's just Billy today. Well, in April 2020, the Pentagon declassified and released 3 videos of UFOs. Now, the one in the center is a very compelling infrared video from 2004 of an object recorded by a Navy pilot that has been named a gimbal. Well, I want to show you a clip of this video. Having seen the clip in its entirety before looking for a usable version of this video, I was actually kind of puzzled that for every clip of this video that I found, the first few seconds of it were cut off. And I was like, what in the world? It took me a long time to find the full clip of this video. When I did, it became apparent why the first few seconds were cut off. That's because at the very beginning of this clip, the pilot says, "It's a drone, bro." He actually drops an expletive in there, but you can see it in the text. Here's a look at that clip that you see there. Very first thing the pilot says, it's a drone, bro. Much of the audio in it is inaudible. A lot of squawk talk is heard there, but I just wanted to give you a look at this UFO that was again recorded by a U.S. Navy pilot off the coast of California in 2004. Well, similar incidents took place in airspaces off the coast of Virginia and North Carolina that were described as approximately the same size and shape as a drone or missile. Now, the official assessment of the Pentagon is that these were drones that they call unmanned aerial systems, or UASs. However, the military has been unable to identify who was operating these drones. If these drones are being operated by a country like Russia or China, it would be an obvious major security issue. The official report from the Pentagon states this: in many ways, drones pose a greater mid-air risk than manned aircrafts. They're often less visually significant and less radar apparent than manned aircrafts. They're very concerned about these drones, very, very concerned. Well, some people were convinced about aliens by ancient constructions like the pyramids in Egypt, which they say people couldn't have built those things. They had to have alien help to build such things. Or what are called Nazca lines in southern Peru. One of those can be seen here. These Nazca lines, as they're called, are incredibly massive pieces of ancient artwork that are located in the arid Peruvian coastal plain. One of them is shown here, a big spider. Now, a couple of figures are shown here next to a road to help you perceive the scale of the artwork that you're looking at here. These are massive, massive pieces of artwork. Well, the largest of the Nazca figures that has been found is approximately 1,000 feet in length, and the longest geoglyph goes on for about 9 miles. You got one of these things that goes on for 9 miles. Well, some have claimed that ancient people must have received help from aliens to build such things, but we've actually made similar things ourselves without technological help. This is called Mundi Man. Mundi Man is a painting of an Australian stockman that covers over 5 million square meters. It was carved in a year by an artist by the name of Ando with a tractor and a plow, without sophisticated means like GPS coordinates, but simply mathematics. Simply mathematical calculations. For a size comparison, the man's smile is as wide as the Empire State Building is tall. So this thing is a massive, massive painting in Australia. Well, some have claimed that the giant strips in Nazca Desert, like the one you see here, were ancient alien runways. They argue that this was an ancient alien runway. But you would think that an advanced alien ship able to traverse the vast expanse of space would not need a runway to gradually come to a touchdown. But, perhaps, however, these poor aliens haven't figured out how to land vertically yet, like we have, They can't bring their ships down and land them vertically. They apparently still need a runway, even though you can traverse the vast expanses of space. You can't land the way we can land our rockets today. You got to have a runway, apparently. So, Well, some are also convinced by things like the face on Mars. You may remember the face on Mars. A picture of the Sidonian region of Mars by the Viking 1 orbiter, and was released by NASA in July 1976, showed what many claimed was a carved face, like those that have been carved on Mount Rushmore. It was argued that this was a carved face on Mars. The face on Mars was, in fact, featured in the movie Mission to Mars in 2000, a movie that was featured that had Gary Sinise in it, Tim Robbins, and Don Cheadle. Well, the plot of the movie involves the discovery of the face by the astronauts on Mars who were able to enter the face. After they entered it, a 3D animation reveals that a large asteroid had reduced Mars to an uninhabitable condition. A projected humanoid then appears to the astronauts, revealing that the natives of Mars evacuated the planet in spaceships to a distant world, but one of them was sent to Earth to seed Earth with DNA. A concept that's actually very popular today. Sometimes you don't know whether scientists get their ideas from science fiction or science fiction gets its ideas from science. You can't tell sometimes today. However, in April 2001, the Mars Global Surveyor drew close enough for a second look at that face on Mars. The Mars team captured an extraordinary photo using the camera's maximum resolution shown here. What the picture actually shows, though, is not a face. It's just a Martian equivalent to a butte or a mesa, geographical landforms common around the American West. No face, no Martians on Mars, sadly. Well, some are also convinced of the existence of aliens, that aliens have been visiting Earth through the crop circles that started appearing in cereal crop fields in the 1970s. Quickly, the circles were claimed by ufologists to be alien in origin because, quote, we couldn't do something like that. And these were claimed that they were likely landing sites for flying saucers. They literally called these saucer nests. I recall it being noted as very significant by a coworker of mine that she felt that these couldn't have been man-made. These crop circles couldn't be man-made because the wheat stalks were bent over. They weren't broken. It was when I was working as a technician at Texas Tech. One of my coworkers had a magazine that featured the crop circles. And I remember her making the argument that we couldn't have done these things. It couldn't have been done by man because the stalks of wheat weren't broken. They were just bent over. I didn't understand why that was significant, but I remember it being argued. However, in 1991, the hoaxers, Doug Bauer and his co-conspirator David Corley, confessed and showed how they'd made the crop circles. They had fooled the so-called experts for 13 years using only the simple tools that Bauer is showing right there. Just a board with some rope and just a little bit of fun out there just messing with people. Well, despite the original hoaxers coming forward, UFO enthusiasts continued in their belief that aliens were responsible. Crop circles continued to appear and became increasingly elaborate over time. Many were viewed as being messages from outer space. A new breed of hoaxers began making even more complex modifications. Other modifications on site were found, including that indicated that advanced technologies had been present. The newer crop circles, according to experts, were marked not only with complex and precise designs, but also with deformations of the grains. The grains of wheat on the sites were found to be deformed. They also found metal particles on the site, indicating that some spacecraft might have been present. These new crop circles were argued to be not from hoaxers, but from real aliens. In 2002, the existence of crop circles as alien phenomena was featured in the movie called Signs, with Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix. Well, in the same year that this movie came out, MIT students at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, took up the challenge to analyze and reproduce the crop circles on par with those being created elsewhere at the request of the producers of a Discovery Channel special called Crop Circles: Mystery in the Fields. In addition to creating geometric patterns with perfectly straight lines, they also used a homemade device that sprayed molten iron particles, like the ones that had been found at other sites, and another that deformed grains of wheat using parts from a microwave oven. Well, one of the students said this after recreating these crop circles on par with those that found everywhere. One of the students said this: I find it hard to put any faith in tales of crop circle constructions by aliens. I think they're just the result of free time, boredom, and a good sense of humor. Well, today you can also become a crop circle maker if you choose to do so. Circlemakers.org will teach you how to make crop circles if you so desire. You can also hire them to create aerial advertisements if you wish. Aerial advertisements are now being made by not by aliens, though, by just people. That's all they were, just people making these. where some were convinced of the existence of aliens by the supposed flying saucer crash that happened outside of Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. The local newspaper headline stated this: Roswell Army Airfield captures flying saucer on a ranch in Roswell region. Well, remember that in 2019, the Gallup poll that I mentioned previously found that the majority of adults, that is 60%, said that UFO sightings can be explained by human activity or natural phenomena. It also found that 68% of Americans believe that UFOs are being covered up. In fact, more Americans believe that the government is hiding knowledge of UFOs than believe that UFOs are of extraterrestrial origin. Well, the incident at Roswell and the government research facility called Area 51 are today constantly cited as arguments of government censorship of the knowledge of UFOs. Well, just so you know, I'm an apparent UFO expert because I grew up in Roswell, New Mexico. I grew up in Roswell. My dad was actually born in Roswell. I grew up there until I left to move off to college in Texas. But interestingly, even though my dad was born in Roswell and I grew up there, I never heard about the Roswell incident. Never heard about it. Even though my dad was born there, never heard about the Roswell incident, and that's because no one did. Back when I was there, no one knew about the Roswell incident until it was hyped up in the mid-1980s, following the publication of a book by a UFO investigator called The Roswell Incident in 1980. Well, a number of terribly non-credible witnesses came forward, claiming to have seen alien bodies and such at the crash site, but these proved to not be worth the paper their names are on. One of the only credible witnesses was this guy. This is Major Jesse Marcel. He was the base intelligence officer who gathered the debris that had been found by a local rancher, debris that he described this way: as not made by human hands. Not made by human hands. Well, let's look at what was recovered. Now, this is not all that was recovered. The Army came in and took away most of the debris, but this is what Marcel managed to take home with himself, and it amounted to be nothing more than a bunch of sticks and rubber. Why would he describe it the way he did? Not made by humans' hands. Well, his son actually gave us some insights when he was interviewed by a History Channel special. His son said that his dad was obsessed with aliens, extraterrestrial aliens. He lived it and breathed it, according to his son. And when he found that debris on that ranch outside of Roswell, he took it home and told his son that a crashed alien spacecraft had been found. But I mean, what was found, what was shown there by Jesse Marcel are not the kinds of things that you would expect to find in an alien spacecraft, although we don't have all the debris visible to us there, but aluminum foil and rubber and sticks are just not the kind of things you would expect to find on a crashed alien spacecraft in the first place. These are more materials that we would expect to find from something made here at home, right? Well, what was caused people to believe that a UFO cover-up had taken place is that based on Marcel's assessment, the base public information officer issued a press release which basically said that they had a flying saucer in their possession. This caused that information to appear in headlines across the country. However, the next day, another press release was issued, this time by General Roger Ramey, that stated it was a weather balloon. And that was the start of the best known and most well-documented UFO cover-up in history. Well, here's another look at what was recovered. What it was in reality was a military surveillance balloon that had been launched from the Alamogordo Army Airfield a month earlier, and it carried a radar reflector, a classified project called Project Mogul sensors for experimental monitoring of Soviet nuclear testing. Remember, at this point in history, all they had was high-altitude surveillance balloons to monitor these other countries. And that's what it was, a surveillance balloon that had been launched from an Army airfield nearby that had crashed close to Roswell. Well, to add to the drama, a film was released in 2006 that claimed to be smuggled footage from an autopsy of an alien that had been found at the UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico. The film was viewed by UFO enthusiasts as the smoking gun proof of UFOs and aliens. Stop it. It was narrated by Jonathan Frakes, in fact, the actor who played Riker on Star Trek Next Generation. But the film was a pure fraud. Later, the actors who played the doctors came out on a talk show and admitted how much they were paid. And eventually, the filmmaker, a guy by the name of Spiros Malaris, admitted to it as regrettable. And he stated this: "For me, it was just a joke, a bit of fun, but I've learned my lesson." Well, the film made millions, but was produced in a London flat with a budget of $39,000, using some cuts they obtained from a local butcher shop, some outdated medical equipment from a film and theater prop shop, some vintage newsreel photo, and the help of a friend who worked in special effects. See, ladies and gentlemen, just because something looks good doesn't mean it's real. And that's for sure about the alien autopsy. Well, my hometown of Roswell, just so you know, is now crazy for UFOs, or rather for the tourism dollars that it brings in. Alien heads can be found all over the town. Everything from street lamps to vending machines have alien heads on them. Everything now seems to be UFO themed in Roswell. The Arby's is inclusive of alien visitors, inviting aliens to come visit Arby's. Flying saucers are fixtures around the town. There's also a UFO research center in Roswell. Still researching that UFO crash site, I'm assuming. Various shops and stores offer UFO and alien memorabilia. My sister actually owned a soap shop in Roswell. I haven't had a chance to ask her, though, if they sold any alien-shaped soaps. I'll have to do that, but I bet she did. More UFO shops in Roswell. Various shops and stores offer UFO memorabilia in various forms. Visitors are encouraged to move there so they won't miss the next alien visitation. You better move to Roswell so you don't miss the next crash or next visitation. Sadly, the theater where I used to go to movies when I was a kid is now a UFO museum. Plains Theater. The Plains Theater is now a UFO museum. I haven't been there myself to the UFO museum, but here's a look inside. That's a look inside, the alien there visiting you as they enter the door. Well, in Roswell, even the McDonald's in Roswell is a flying saucer shaped. The only flying saucer-shaped McDonald's, as far as I know, is the one in Roswell. I'm sure it is. Oh, Roswell. What happened to my hometown? Now, crazy for aliens.